What's going on in Washington and here at home? We got to talk about this teacher controversy in Warwick, right?
The Dan Yorke State of Mind program is brought to you in part by Lookout Rhode Island and Takeo Comfort Solutions.
Momentarily, you meet Erika Sanzi once again. She writes the blog Good School Hunting and has done a little bit of research on this tension between the teacher union in Warwick and its administration. Of course, we've had ample controversy here with now 5 schools and 3 separate sick-out days. And if it walks like a duck and quacks like a duck and looks like a duck or a whole bunch of duck stuff, it's probably a duck. So this notion that's not a sick-out we'll talk about in just a second. Glad to have you aboard. Thanks very much for tuning in to my State of Mind on this Tuesday evening. But we got to mention a couple of things. First, the legislature is all a flutter over the hashtag #MeToo follow-up by Erika's here, but Erika Sanzi, the state representative who has decided to kind of weigh in on the Me Too thing, suggesting that she too has been the victim of sexual harassment, including citing an unnamed legislative leader who suggested to her, and I'm paraphrasing, that she'd have a better chance of passing bills if she was more favorable to him, if you understand. You know, I don't know what is going to come of this. These are murky waters, and under no circumstances am I ever going to hint at defending this kind of behavior. But there's a thing called due process, and then there's a thing called timing, and then there's a thing called temperament, and then there's a thing called discipline. Representative Sanzi could certainly hashtag, something tells me that social media once again has gotten in the way of good common sense. That what you type and what you then say might be very different things, right? So she suggests that all this is going on. And she's now put her foot out there, 11 feet on the 10-foot board, and now there's this kind of surge by people who don't think this stuff through very well, that we gotta know who this person is, we gotta know who this person is, so we can clean up the legislature. You know, she would have been very well positioned to say something like this. You know what? I've experienced this before in my adult and legislative life. It's no good, and it needs to change. Instead, she wanted to go one step further to kind of validate that she's had it before and cite a legislative leader unnamed. That's on her. The behavior, if it's true, is on him. But this is not the way you handle these kinds of things. And so she would be wise to wheel this thing back and just say, you know what, in general it's awful, and I hope that the entire conversation from Harvey Weinstein right down to the legislature will curtail the behavior. Otherwise, we've got ourselves a hot frittata that has no practical solution. And this atmosphere we have right now of crush, kill, and destroy, find out who the guy is, we need to know who he is, it can't be my legislator. It's like, come on, please. Everyone just try to think about this thing in a nuanced fashion. It won't hurt your head to do so. All right, next item, speaking of hurting one's head, the President of the United States yesterday decides that he's going to go ahead and comment on past presidents and what they've done to call the families of Gold Star warriors who have been lost. I mean, is this really what we need in this country? At what point do we just say we're fed up with this guy? This is what he said yesterday.
Comments that instantly started drawing the most backlash, his claim past presidents didn't reach out to the families of fallen soldiers as he does.
If you look at President Obama and other presidents, most of them didn't make calls. A lot of them didn't make calls.
Former Obama aides immediately shot down that assertion. President Trump made the comments in response to questions on why he hasn't yet made a public statement regarding the 4 Berets who were killed in an ambush in Niger 2 weeks ago.
And then this morning, prior to our taping of the program, we tape early in the afternoon. It's important to know that because the news cycle moves so fast. He doubled down again in a radio interview, you know, wondering out loud if Barack Obama had called General Kelly when General Kelly lost his son in battle. It's incredible. It's incredible. Now, he probably had said something between that and the time that you've seen the show to further enhance his credibility with the nation. Yeah, I know you want a disruption. Yeah, I know you want some tax cuts. Yeah, I know you want a wall. But do we want some kind of rhyme or reason in that White House? At some point, you know, is this cookie going to crumble, or is he just going to kind of just spout off and make a fool of himself in the country every time he speaks? I don't know. It's just incredible. Playing around with that issue is just unspeakable. All right, let's move on to the issue of the day, and it is this. Judge issues order barring Warwick teachers from sick-outs. Of course, the question is, if you don't admit it's a sick-out, how can you be barred from doing it? Erika Sanzi from the, I call you from the blog. I mean, your blog is really, is your blog being well received, by the way? I think it should be. It's very thoughtful.
Well, it depends on who reads it. But I've had it for a few years. And
I guess the question is better asked. Are a lot of people reading it?
I think yes, but it definitely depends on the piece. So like I put up something about Matt Damon, Harvey Weinstein, that situation, because Matt Damon's very outspoken on education issues in a way that I don't particularly like. And that did really, really well. But then I might write, you know, I don't know, something about...
What don't you like? What did Matt Damon say? Remind me.
Matt Damon thinks that because his mother was a school teacher, he's an expert on schools. And he is very opposed to any sort of school choice. But he sends his 4 daughters to private school.
Oh, I see. One of them types.
And he says that it was a very hard decision, but he had to because there aren't any public schools progressive enough for his family because people like me, I guess, are destroying public education in America.
Aha. Why people like you? Why do you take it personally?
It's not personal, but, you know, because most of the things that I support in education are things that he speaks out against.
And just for the audience's orientation, bullet points on things you support are?
Uniform standards. So whether you're learning in Massachusetts or Mississippi, you're kind of learning the same things. Not taught the same way, but same basic information. School choice, so that zip code doesn't determine the quality of your education. Accountability.
School choice, inter or intra public schools?
I support both.
Yeah. I support intra, not inter.
So you don't support like a Cumberland kid going to school in Barrington?
No, that's intra.
Oh, that's intra.
Intra the public school system. I don't believe.
I thought you just said you don't. Okay, well, I think I heard you wrong.
I don't think you know, and listen, I spend enough dough on Catholic schools for my daughters, so I think I have some standing here. I don't think I should be reimbursed for that. And so school choice in terms of public school parents who take or parents who take their kids from the public schools and put them in private schools, I don't support that. That voucher system to me seems to be a gutting of the public school system. However, I would like to see that kid in Cumberland be able to go to Barrington. More importantly, that kid in the south side of Providence be able to go to Barrington. And transportation is one of the big problems that we have there because those who can't get there don't ask to. That's a whole different conversation.
But what's interesting too is we bemoan declining enrollment, and then we don't invite children from other communities to come fill our seats.
And we have declining enrollment, and the dirty little secret out there in the public
do.
schools right now is that some substantial school districts are finding themselves with a lot of empty seats and not letting the prerequisite employees go.
Would you like to guess the drop in enrollment in Warwick since the 1970s?
What is it?
50%.
50%.
50.
What's
50%.
the drop in? What's the drop in the teacher population?
0, I'd imagine.
Well,
could have even gone up.
We have to
actually.
check on that. But that's
no. That's one of the big sticking points in Warwick for years has been that they can't really lay anybody off because of the contract. So despite needing fewer people in the buildings, they maintain the same number of staff, which is one of the reasons why we don't have money for all the things all of us parents want, because we're maintaining underutilized buildings and keeping on too many people.
So you are a former teacher, elected school committee person, so you've seen both sides of the aisle.
Yep.
It's important for you to establish that when we talk about these things. And I choose Erika to come here because I think she's just got really sharp perspective on education matters. Give me an executive summary of what you think is going on at Warwick, and we'll come back and kind of pick it apart a little bit.
I think that Warwick has had a teachers union that's sort of been able to bully the administration for 40 years, and they now have a new person running the ship, and he has built a new leadership team similar to the way he did in Cumberland.
This is Phil Thornton, the superintendent.
Thornton, yeah, and they're not backing down. So the things that they are asking to keep in the contract are almost impossible to believe. They're so unreasonable. And he is not willing to do anything that he thinks hurts kids directly.
All right,
So for example, he's more likely to sort of go along with something, maybe like a higher number of sick days, because he certainly isn't going to go along with something that like hurts kids day to day in those buildings.
All right, we'll break down what those things are when we come back. We'll talk about the sick out. That ain't a sick out. What? Welcome back. Erika Sanzi, Good School Hunting is the blog. .org?
.org.
.org.
I think .com gets you there too, though.
All right, just type in Good School Hunting and you'll find the blog. And you write when you want to write. It's not even weekly. It's when you want to write.
Yeah, so on a typical week, I'd probably have 3 pieces up maybe. Some are local, some are national, some are real kind of like sometimes it's just highlighting an adorable video of kids at a local school, and sometimes it's like a pretty in-depth piece.
My prediction is that this is going to
varies.
catch on and you're going to find a larger platform because of the thought process. I'm that impressed with the dialogue. Don't always agree, but the process by which you look at things. In the meantime, let's look at some things here. Here's the latest Eyewitness News story on what happened in court yesterday re the Warwick schools.
The third day this month, schools in Warwick forced to close due to a significant number of teachers calling out sick. More than half of the teachers at Oakland Beach Elementary, Robertson Elementary, and Park School called out sick.
Do you really think that many teachers are sick right now?
Sure, yeah. If they look at, like I said, I'm not going to cast aspersions on anyone who's calling out sick. If somebody calls out sick, he or she is sick.
Teachers Union President Darlene Netco says the calls are not union sanctioned or organized. The superintendent has called them sick outs and took the union to court over them today. The judge ordered the union to not stage any kind of work stoppages for 10 days until the next hearing.
Looks like a duck, quacks like a duck, and we believe it's quite clear this is a concerted job action.
This all comes amidst ongoing contract negotiation disputes between the teachers union and school committee, including things like class size, sick time, and salary. Mediation is set to take place Wednesday night. A school committee meeting is scheduled for 7:15 Thursday morning, which some, including Netco, say is a problem.
Certainly having a meeting at that hour isn't conducive to a true public discourse.
Eyewitness News reached out to Superintendent Dr. Philip Thornton about the meeting time, and he wrote, "The meeting focus is executive session items, very brief meeting."
I don't know, some people's brain will work better in the morning.
Mine definitely does, actually.
Mine doesn't, but I'm just saying, you know.
No?
It's a crapshoot. Let me just say a couple of things. You can jump on board or not. First of all, I don't know what in the heck happened at court yesterday. You're leaning back. I can tell you don't want anything to do with this conversation. But somebody ought to have been warned on contempt of court, and if not responded, if he didn't respond properly, he should have been thrown in jail. I absolutely believe that. I mean, this Jeffrey Castle, who I do not know, who I'm sure is a very competent professional. He's working on behalf of the union. Him walking into that courtroom and suggesting that nobody knows about the sick out, as the union president has done. By the way, I don't know why she's tripling down on the idea that if you're sick, you're sick, because I have her, and go to WPRO.com and the podcast where I spoke to her. I wish I had the audio. It's not handy, but we'll try to get it for you in some kind of quick fashion here, because we're going to continue to follow this story. She more or less acquiesced to the idea that this was not a sick out, that that these people weren't legitimately sick, or most of them weren't, that this was a job action. And so now she's going back to listen, if they're sick. I mean, the insult to you and to me is just outrageous. What Judge McGurl should have done is said, listen, Mr. Castle, you can revisit this and reposition this if you want to, and you can argue about some of the issues in the contract, but if you're going to sit here and insult the court and suggest that this is not a formal sick out, where more than 50% of the teachers are out in 5 separate schools over 3 separate days, then you're lying to the court, and you'll be serving time in jail until, as an officer of the court, you can't come in here and lie. That's what she should have done. That's what he should be up against. Are you
asking if I'd be bothered by him spending last night in jail? I'd be fine with that.
Yeah, I mean,
he's
look,
absolutely lying.
You go in for your 2 hours,
lying.
you get fingerprinted, you get mugshotted, and you get bailed.
And you're an example now.
And you're an example now of somebody who came into court and lied.
Yep.
I mean, come on.
It's not the first time. I mean, this is kind of what they do.
Do they think, and what kind of reputation do they have? Listen, you get this better, so I'll shut up. We now have a parent protest that is scheduled for tomorrow. It is amazing and transparent to me how these PTOs and the parents come together racing for the teacher support, because they really don't understand the issues. They're just petrified for their kids being victimized in the classrooms. And so as long as those kids are in front of those teachers, they're going to be with those teachers for the time being that those kids are in front of those teachers. Am I wrong about that?
No, you're not wrong. And it's hard to say because I have the utmost respect for parents when they engage. I was a parent who started out as a parent that was engaging. But the reality is there's so much to learn. If you really want to engage, you know, at a level where you're dealing in information and facts, it takes a lot of time and a lot of research, and you got to talk to everybody. And my frustration with the interview that you had with the parent was it was clear that she just didn't have all the information. And it's hard. I mean, you know, kids.
Well, she talked to a lot of teachers. And I asked her, did you talk to anybody in the administration? No, not about this.
But I'd be surprised. I mean, I'd want to know, did she talk to any of the teachers who didn't call in sick? Because I am well aware that this is not a unanimous, you know, not everybody working in those buildings agrees with any of these demands.
Well, the highest amount of a percentage was 60%. And in one school, 62% of the teachers and staff called in sick, which means that 38 to 40% said no, and near 50% said no, they're not going to do that. But you can't run a school on half the teachers.
No, and I would imagine that life hasn't been that easy for the people that are not following along with this. It's not an easy place to be.
Why would that be? If you're sick, you're sick. I mean, all these people called in sick, legitimately sick. Why would the people who didn't call in sick have a problem with the people who called in sick? It's just a bug. It's got nothing to do with anything other than that. What are you talking about?
Because they're lying. And everybody knows that. And I have known teachers in the past who have been ordered by union reps, this is not in Warwick, by the way, to get out of the building right after school because it sets a bad precedent to do any extra work. And they would hide in the closet of their classroom till the sweep was done by the rep, and then they'd come back out and they would work in their classroom for as many hours as they wanted to.
When we come back, Erika will break down some of the actual real arguments, the issues like the negotiation. Stay with us. Warwick Schools, Judge McGurl, courts, ridiculous. Superintendent. We only have a handful of minutes here. What are the basic issues in Warwick as you see between the teachers and the system? They've been out now for how long without a contract?
2015.
2015, okay.
Yeah. And these processes are supposed to move quickly. Arbitration should take about, I think, 20 days. We're moving on a year and a half. And that's, you know, teachers' unions often like to drag things out like this, and that's kind of what we're seeing happening. Sticking points are hugely concerning to me because none of the demands that Phil Thornton and his team are willing to acquiesce to, none of them are reasonable. You know, 90 sick days, not reasonable. They're complaining about class sizes with special ed children, and I think that's a conversation that certainly needs to be had, but what they're not telling us, and I'd imagine that some of the parents going to the protest don't realize, is that in the expired contract language, they were counting children with IEPs as more than one student. So they may be saying to you, there's 34 kids in this class, but it actually can be a class of 18 students, but they count, if your disability is more mild, they count you as 1.5 children, and if your disability is more severe, they count you as 2 children. It's
in the contract?
Yeah. The expired contract language.
Who determines whether a student is a student and a half, or 2 students?
Isn't that
who does that?
Frightening. That is actually a great question, and I don't know. It sounds like they sort of look at the IEP, and then somebody, I don't know who, makes the decision.
That's the individualized education plan, the IEP. And all special ed students have a version of that, correct?
Correct. And so the student who has, you know, perfect scores on every academic test but happens to be in speech services is being counted as more than one child. Because they broad brush pretty much, so every child on an IEP. So what you have, I mean, if you think about it, this is actually I would use the word discriminatory. I mean, you cannot count one child as more or less than another child, and you certainly can't walk around and say to the public, I have 34 kids in my class, when you really have 18 kids in your class, but you're double counting because of their special education status.
Well, that seems like an old-fashioned way to describe special ed students.
I think that's fair. I think that's fair.
I guess the emphasis on, I guess the rationale would be that a severely disabled child is twice the work. I'm not trying to legitimize it. I'm just wondering how in the heck that would happen. But you're telling me that some of this public chatter about oversized classrooms is actually a computation and not a real human condition?
Well, yeah, correct. I'm telling you that the class.
I'm saying there's 34 kids in a classroom for one.
No,
they're not there. What's the largest class?
In fact, my understanding is the largest class I think is an honors Spanish class, where Spanish 4 and Spanish 5 kids are in the same class, and I want to say that's at 29, and the teacher is paid an overage for having extra kids in the class.
Oh my goodness.
So the average class size in Warwick Elementary is 18, the average class size in the middle schools is 22, and the average class size in the high schools is 22. That's not to say that there may not be 1 or 2 outliers, but there is not a class size crisis in Warwick.
Some of these moms that are engaging in this protest would suggest that it's not about the money, it's just about protecting my kids. There's an example of the press release, or a picture of the press release, which is kind of hard to read. If you got a big screen, you probably will see some of that. It's not about the money, it's not about the money. Well, after a quick challenge to the author of that, she kind of admitted, well, there's some money. In fact, they turned down a pretty significant arbitration.
They turned down an 11.4 increase over 3 years compounded. So they were offered 3%, then 3%, then 3%, which would have been 11.4%. So I think the top step would have gone from 77,000 to 86,000. And they turned that down. They want 15%. And the district has says they can't do that. They won't do that, and they can't do that. But yeah, so the money offers have been turned down. The issues around getting the best person in front of kids has been turned down because they are insisting that all athletic coaches be hired from inside the district and based on seniority. Bill Belichick could apply for that job. He would not get the job because he doesn't already work in the district and he's not the most senior person. It's insane. There's nothing good for kids that I can see coming out of any of what that union is asking for, and it's upsetting. It's very upsetting to watch.
They have no legitimate complaints, no legitimate queries, no legitimate asks.
Every person has legitimate complaints, right? But in what we do. But in terms of these contractual demands, no, they do not.
Where's this going, you think?
My prediction? My prediction is that, the arbitrator puts out how he's leaning on issues, and those are out in public. But the official report, which I think is going to be 90 pages or something, is coming out soon. My sense is the district will get much of what it wants around what's best for kids. They may not get what they want on some of these sick days issues, which I still can't believe, but fine. But I don't think that the union's going to agree.
All right. Well, we'll see how it goes. There's your latest, goodschoolhunting.org or .com for the latest on education matters. Final word and we come back. There's a little controversy about the Columbus statue, Columbus Square. Oh, you don't know where that is? It's at Elmwood and Reservoir Avenue. And Federal Hill's attempt to bring the statue up to a place where it will be treated better. Will be the conversation tomorrow on My State of Mind. We'll see you on the radio as well at 3 till 6 on WPRL. Thanks for watching. Good night.